between the town and the village 30 years ago. So I look forward to working with everybody and hope that some of the expertise that I've gleaned over the years from working with planning and zoning will help us move forward to a really creative and productive solution. Anyone want to add anything else before we move on?
Would you just state for the record what NBR stands for?
NBR stands for Neighborhood Business Residential. And it's the latest name for that district, which has undergone quite a few changes in name, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Thanks.
But
No, are we moving on?
we are moving on. Okay. I would like to solicit nominations for the chair, and then we're going to vote by paper ballot.
I think I would nominate Joe
I'll
to
second
be
that.
chair, because I think, you know, the expertise and the experience is just overwhelming.
Does anyone have to second that?
I second.
Lloyd,
Oh,
second.
good.
Enthusiastic.
Okay.
Are we
There's nobody else.
a co-chair or not co-chair never mind.
Deputy?
Well, let's vote on the chair first.
Yeah.
Are there any other nominations? All right, we'll close the nominations. Let's vote anyway, because,
Is that really
Do
necessary?
we have any write-in
We
candidates?
do a show of hands.
They're all ready.
Can I recommend-
yes.
I'm okay with
All
that.
right. You okay with that? Yeah. Okay, so I
I would
guess,
say we should have a voice vote.
okay, voice vote. I don't think I can chair my own vote, but
So all those who are in favor of Joe being chair?
Aye.
Opposed?
opposed?
Did you oppose yourself?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I'm very happy to chair this committee, and I'm glad that we made it official. I'm now no longer pro tem, which is Latin, and we're glad to get rid of it. Okay, I would
No
like to...
teacher stuff.
No teaching stuff, okay.
You're still a pro.
What about a co-chair? I would like to ask Brad if he could co-chair with me, as being able to handle a lot of the technical stuff that is more recent.
Well, you also sent an email mentioning you'd be out of the country for a bit, so.
Yeah, I'm going to tell
Good to have someone
everybody that,
who is
yeah,
Local
right.
with the chairs.
Again, I would just tell you that I worked for the planning field for 30 years. I've consulted for Town of Amenia, their planning board. I've been consultant for a Town of Wayanda for their planning board. I handled the county referral program for about 6 years originally. And then what I've been doing mostly for the last 20-some years has been designing the park system. But it's also working through the legislature and working through seeker on the legislative projects, just so you all know some of my experience.
Did you make
Okay.
that a motion that you want Brad to be?
Yes, let's have a motion.
Okay, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much, Brad. That will really be helpful. Okay, the next thing I'd like to do then is look at the Behan scope of work. I apologize. I thought I had packed this in my bag, but I don't have it. So I'd like to go over this and also see if we could adopt it as our mission statement, as it were. And there will be an opportunity also if you would like me to take any suggestions back to Behan to modify it. So let me read this into the record. Background. Behan Planning and Design developed a set of draft recommendations for this corridor, formerly the B3 district, as part of an earlier study conducted with the village. The village adopted an amendment to the village zoning code to create a neighborhood business residential mixed-use district. Since that time, the village has reviewed development proposals under a new code and found there are areas where the code could be strengthened or revised to ensure a better quality of development. In particular, these areas of the code relate to specific design standards and the details of the review process. Given that one of the primary goals of the new code was to enhance the quality and compatibility for the design of new development, these edits are an important priority for the village. So here is the proposed scope of services. The following tasks represent our recommended approach. Task 1, Advisory Committee collaboration, code evaluation, and recommendations outline. BHAN Planning and Design, BHAN, will meet with the advisory committee being established by the village to discuss how the current code is working or not working. That meeting number 1 with BHAN will take place after we've done preliminary background work, and BHAN has as well. So that first meeting with the planning consultant will be on March 21st. And the representative who's working with us is Michael Allen. So by that time, we'll have a background and be able to address our concerns. Well, we're also informed about what's gone before, and some of us have been working with this more than others, so it's good if we all get up to the same level of understanding. Okay. Bullet 2. BHAN will review several of the recent development proposals which are being considered to identify potential design neighborhood compatibility issues. BHAN will analyze the existing code to identify any additional gaps or areas which could be strengthened or clarified. Based on discussions and findings from the above tasks, BHAN will summarize the areas of concern in a memo. This memo will inform the agenda for a public workshop. Task 2, public workshop. BHAN will facilitate a public workshop to discuss the corridor and solicit people's input on what they would like to see for this area of the village, including discussion of the initial findings from the memo above. As part of this, images will be used to provide examples of different types and scales of development projects for a visual preference survey to give people a range of ideas of size, scale, massing, relationship to street, and design aesthetics. Public meeting number 1. The findings of the visual preference survey, along with public comments, will be documented for the advisory committee. Task 3, detailed recommendations. Develop design-based recommendations. BHAN will consider and recommend an approach appropriate for the corridor and for administration by the village, e.g., design guidelines, form-based code, etc. The recommended approach will be outlined in a memo for consideration by the advisory committee. This is the end of the 3-month timeline for which Mayor Rogers has assigned the $10,000 of available funds. The phase 2 will be done in coordination with a Ulster County Transportation Council, UPWP, Northern New Paltz study. BHAN shall prepare recommended modifications to the current zoning language. For ease of review, these changes shall identify text changes in color to be deleted or added or reviewed as necessary. BHAN shall submit the draft graphics and draft code amendments document to the Village of New Paltz for discussion with the advisory committee. So that's meeting number 2. I believe that will be part of our initial work. We'll make sure that we get that clarified. Task 4, public presentation of draft recommendations. BHAN shall prepare and facilitate a PowerPoint presentation with the public to review the draft code amendments and solicit comment. Public meeting number 2. Task 5, review and prepare public hearing draft proposed zoning amendment. BHAN shall revise and submit the proposed code amendments and graphics to the Village of New Paltz for preparation of a draft local law and set a public hearing on its adoption. BHAN shall prepare a PowerPoint presentation for use by the village at the public hearing. We propose to complete the work in Phase 1 for the lump sum of $10,000. It is anticipated the village staff would be able to complete any final steps required after the public hearing to adopt the proposed changes. Attendance at additional meetings, additional graphics, code edits, drafting of the local law, and seeker compliance, if required, would be provided as an additional hourly service if requested by the village. Respectfully submitted, John BHAN.
Can I ask some questions?
Sure. And I may not be able to answer all
Sure.
of these questions.
So,
Just let me say, I had a long conversation, initial conversation, with Michael Allen on the phone, and I'm preparing a series of documents to send to him, and I will get back to him later this week with your input today if there are any clarifications that need to be made. Yes, so go ahead, Floyd.
sure, well, just one clarification is when they refer to the advisory committee, they're talking about our review committee.
They're talking about us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like Phase 1 ends fairly early after the first meeting. So does that mean everything after Phase 1, after the first meeting, is an additional?
That's what I have to
10,000?
clarify. I think that,
Because at the last paragraph, it seems something different.
yes, I think that originally there was the proposal for $17,000 that they would complete it through the draft zoning amendment. So I believe what we're doing is going all the way up to, that without having the formal code amendments done. But I will clarify that
Because
exactly.
they're pretty clear that end of Phase 1 is right there. And that's the $10,000 fee.
Right, well, we'll clarify
Okay,
that.
sure.
Because I'm sure we'll be meeting with him more than
Yeah, it
than
sounds like there's
twice.
quite a bit of scope after that.
Yeah, well, I will certainly clarify that, and it's kind of contradictory, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This question kind of goes into the next agenda item, but with 4 meetings envisioned, I think it'd be important to schedule them very early because we are trying to do this in a certain time. I think the current village board wanted to do this while they were still the current board. That gives us a pretty hard deadline, so if we're going to have 2 meetings with the consultant of this group and 2 public meetings, I think we would be well served to back those out from when we need to be done.
Yes. But we can't meet with the consultant before the 21st of March, so that's kind of a hard deadline. And then
Well, I guess the
after
question
that, we
becomes-
can meet more often.
So with a March 21st start with the consultant, would we have time to do what we need to do? I'm not quite sure
Well,
how
this
much
is-
time that is.
Well, the 3-month timeline, I mean, this contract, I don't know if this contract has even been signed yet. So that would seem to be, we can't start before the contract is signed with the 3-month deadline, so,
So how long was the current term, is your current term?
Is it June 1st? Yeah, June, yes. New board is seated on June 1st. I think
Okay.
speaking just for myself, I think.
right, well, we had hoped to get started a lot earlier than this, as people know. But, I mean, we are waiting for the contract to be signed, and I'm not certain whether that's happened yet. I don't think it has. But,
Do we know
I
an
still
hour,
think-
do we know an hourly rate?
no, I'll find that out.
And maybe we should put a cap on the hourly expenditure?
Right, well, let's clarify exactly
Yeah.
how far the 10,000 takes us.
Right.
the timing may be more complicated, because I know it was hoped that we could do this while the current board was still in office, and maybe it will.
March 21st, I mean, I think what we need to do is, as a board, we need to be, or as a committee, we need to be ready
Yep,
on the 21st, having done a lot of our background work.
right.
And if that's done, then I think we can proceed fairly.
Yeah, my thinking would be, we could have the second public meeting, which is the 4th of 4, near the end of May.
Yeah.
If we
Right,
can do
so-
that. But
I think, I would think that's doable.
Nuts and bolts are,
Yeah, I
but I
would
don't
think
want
that's
to.
doable. I
proclaim
think,
that
you know,
yes.
one of the big advantages is having them do professional visual survey, preference survey. That's something that someone would be in a lot better shape to put together and come up with meaningful photos
Yeah.
that could really help illustrate for the different community members what we're really talking about. So I think that that's one of the key parts, and they can start doing that very early on in the process.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, we may be able to have a lot more meetings, but to begin with, we all need to get all of this background information, fully understood, so that we will know the right questions to ask, the places where we need to have specific expert guidance, and that way we can all be ready to hit the ground running on the 21st of March. And once the contract is signed, we can clarify what those timelines will be. Certainly, the public meetings are not going to be necessarily on a Tuesday. And I'm trying to accommodate the planning board members by having Tuesday meetings before the village planning board meets, because that makes life a little easier. So, yeah, I mean, we only got the okay to go ahead on setting this committee up, like last week, and the consultant item is still pending.
I think
So-
your concerns are, well-founded, but
Yep.
I think that it's a very doable situation.
Well, let's
Right.
go, I derailed this, let's go back to BHAN and scheduling this next item. Sorry, I spoke out of turn.
No,
not
that's
at all,
fine.
not
I
at
think
all.
we're all concerned about the timing, but I'm trying to organize this without having been able to meet or talk to the consultant more than once, because he was busy with another project. So I will clarify that, and I will update the committee by email later this week. Okay? And as soon as I find out that the contract is signed, I will certainly let you know. So the schedule is obviously something that concerns you, and that's something I'll be able to fill you in on probably pretty soon, as soon as I talk to the consultant. I would like to at least adopt the idea of this as a guideline, but if people feel they would like it clarified, we could say that we could do it with amendments.
I think in general, I think it's personally, I think it's acceptable, and it's a good direction. It's a good, solid process that they've set up, that he's laid out. So I would, adopt it as a general process that we agree we're going to try and follow through on. We will follow through on. And that, we have concerns about getting it done on a certain timeline. And we'll relay those concerns to the consultant and try and move along as directly as we can. But I think what's set forth here is an excellent way to go about this, just in dealing with the zoning committees that I've dealt with.
And we can approve this subject to further changes as well. There's nothing will be written in stone once we approve
Yeah, that's what I meant, but I
Yeah.
think that's, I think the way it's been laid out, it shows us clearly what the process is going to be, and if we can clarify the dates more fully, then I think that would give us an even better look at the roadmap. But the general outline seems to me a wise path to follow. So would somebody like to motion?
I would just say, just to add, to clarify what phase one means.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah,
we need
yeah,
to know
that's our
that,
major
but-
concern.
But I guess the question is that such a large question, and it may be, that we don't want you to adopt the document as a
Well,
guideline?
I was under the impression that phase one was everything through the first two tasks as well as the first bullet of task 3.
That's
That
what
is
my
what we
understanding is,
would have
Yeah.
been communicated to us previously. That's phase
But
one.
that leaves a big empty area of not knowing what the costs are gonna be.
Well, we're going to,
Well, the costs are $10,000 up to that point.
Right, but then he's saying there's an hourly rate only at the end, so it leaves a big gap.
well, we'll clarify that. I mean, he had to amend this because originally he was doing it for the $17,000 and then had to quickly amend it
Sure,
so
so
that we
that's
could
And there
have
is additional
something.
money in the next
in hand.
budget for this purpose, so I think the idea is to get us through May,
Gotcha.
and then there'll be additional budget for
Yeah,
next
And
budget.
It's good to know that.
And I think this paragraph really speaks to, you know, it's anticipated the village staff would be able to complete any final steps required after the public hearing to adopt the proposed changes. Attendance at additional meetings, additional graphics, codecs, etc. So it seems like they're speaking about after the public hearing.
Yeah.
If we want them to come back, they're going to charge us more.
right.
It would be good to get clarification on that, but that's my reading.
Right, but when they say public hearing, that's different from public meeting.
Right, the public hearing to adopt the proposed
Right.
changes.
Right,
So
so
that
like
would
I said,
be
there's a-
after it's already written and codified.
Right, so there's a big gap there.
Yeah.
And again, I think I would be most concerned about, I guess I wouldn't see why we wouldn't at least get bullet 2
On task 3.
on task 3.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think that's the key thing we really need from him.
Yeah.
So I would push him to get us at least bullet 2.
Yeah,
As far as writing documents after that, that's here and there.
yeah.
So that would be my push with him.
Will do. Okay, so can we make a motion to adopt the general idea with amendments as to the exact?
I second your motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I will get back to you as soon as I have a chance to talk to him and clarify that.
Good.
Okay, so the next steps with Michael Allen will be for me to fill him in on a lot of the work that I've been trying to do in terms of gathering the data that will help him see where we've come with the studies that we've been doing recently, actually in trying to wrap our arms around the zero place issue and all the things that were brought up in that, in terms of the sort of problems with the current code and also the things that need to be considered on a broader basis. So with a view to that, the first things that I'm going to give him are the things that I'm going to give you today. And that is a sort of guideline to how to find documents in the Village of New Paltz website. So I'm going to go over this, and I'm also going to send you all this stuff by email.
That would be awesome.
But I want to go over it, but I'm also going to give it to you by email, because hopefully these clickable links will work.
Hopefully it comes up blue.
Yeah. Okay, so they're blue at the moment. I hope they stay blue. Some of them today did not want to stay blue. Keep that one. Okay, so it's not easy navigating the village website until you've been doing it so often that it's hard to explain to anyone else because it's so intuitive. So the village website has notices as to what's happening. It has a calendar on the left-hand side. If you go all the way across the tab, the far right tab says Public Records. Under that, you will find several useful documents. So the first item has agendas and minutes, and you'll be able to find agendas and minutes and even videos of past meetings, and there's some really useful documents, some of which I'll be pulling out for you to see later on. The third item is village code, and that's where you find the zoning. The zoning is chapter 212, and there's a clickable link for that. Within that section, you'll find the zoning map. You'll find a use table that tells you what the current uses are for all the districts, a density control schedule, and if you want the NBR, Neighborhood Business Residential District regulations, I've given you a direct link to that. I hope these things work. If they don't, please let me know. The fifth item under public record is called resources, and that has even more relevant documents. The first bullet item is master plans, or master plans, and that is the village comprehensive plan from '94. That is still our current comprehensive plan. And the fifth item, planning and zoning, is where you'll find the 2007 Village of New Paltz B3 district regulations. Sometimes the PDFs don't load properly on my computer, so if that happens and you've got a link there, you can always cut and paste that and put it right into the browser, and that should get it to you directly. The B3 district became the North Chestnut Gateway District in July 2013, and then an expanded footprint became the current NBR in October 2015. So that is the history of the recent history of the B3 zone. So that's the first document that I'm going to send you guys. And I know some people know how to do all those things in their sleep, but it's helpful. And sometimes you forget. Yeah,
For the board members,
yeah.
we're pretty familiar with schedule of use regulations and the schedule of density controls. I know you are.
I would say no.
Okay. Okay.
Quick study, but
Yeah,
We can
okay.
learn.
So zoning is, you divide it up for each. Use has to be named to be able to use it in a specific district, and then there are different ways that that can be approved. Either it's a permitted use, or a specially permitted use, or a specially permitted use that requires a site plan. So right now in the NBR zone, there are no uses that are listed as straight permitted. Everything requires some other type of approval from the planning board, specifically a special use permit and a site plan. So it impacts how the ordinance is then enforced and what really a developer can count on when he's going into a project, and what the residents in the community can be expected to be built in. So they're important parts of the ordinance. The density control is really how much density you're supposed to be able to get on the site. Now with the NBR zone, we only have one, you're allowed to cover 85% of the lot with impervious surface. You can only have four, you can have up to 4 stories. You basically have to allow enough extra square footage on your parcel to handle all the parking spaces that you need for the uses that you're proposing. So those are really the only density controls on this district, and then everything else is by individual review, site plan review. So that's why part of the concerns with the NBR zone is just it's almost too simple, that it really opens things up so widely that it's not predictable. And so in some ways the zero place development, the developer is not doing a bad job on the building for what he wants to do. And we actually can't rely on all developers to be as good actually as he is. So with the ordinance the way that it is, with very little control, control, it causes a real problem no matter who the developer is.
And it creates a burden on our planning board, right, Bill?
Absolutely.
No clarity.
No clarity. And no predictability.
Right.
And that's what, a developer wants. He's got to convince whoever's putting the money up, or if it's him, he's got to convince maybe his wife and his family that he's got to put that money up. And without predictability, how do you make a business investment? So it works both ways.
I think the best, or the common vehicle for predictability and standards is design standards. So you say, here's what you can do. So when a developer goes in there, it's not a blank piece of paper. They can say, here's the range of what I can do. Let's pick that one.
Yeah, design standards make it clear for the developer, it makes it clear for the community, it makes it clear for the planning boards and the village board in order to plan what they really want to have happen in a particular district. And actually, our gateway district, the G district, which is our western gateway, is a district.
Not the towns, villages.
The village's western gateway. We're sort of in a village frame of mind here. So the village's western gateway, next to the Wallkill River, is called the Gateway District. And the Gateway District has really clear design guidelines, and those guidelines and the whole district itself was recognized with a NICOM award, which is the New York Council of Mayors award, in 1999 for its excellence in its design guidelines and its planning. And we can see that in how well Water Street Market has evolved since it was first built under that design guideline set and a zoning code that went with it. So actually the Northern Gateway, which was first the B3 district and then it was the North Chestnut Gateway, was trying to move towards that same kind of gateway concept. But it didn't have such a clear sort of entity or characteristic, and so the gateway idea kind of fell by the wayside. So that's part of the history. For handout number 2, here is the history of the Gateway District, or the B3, AKA North Chestnut, AKA NBR District.
Does this go with everyone?
No,
That may come off, that's the back.
yeah, that's the back.
It's
Some-
kind of, it's not on.
Some people have not been stapled correctly.
Take that for Don.
Yeah.
You have to restate.
No, let me give you a stapled copy.
Well, I'll put.
Thank you.
It's all right.
You're welcome.
Killing trees.
I got some spares if the audience would like. Okay, I'm going to read this into the record if you don't mind. Village of New Paltz, design guideline history of the B3 North Chestnut Gateway / NBR zone. And I did this analysis last month because on the 25th of January 2017, there was a discussion by the village board related to design guidelines in the village of New Paltz. This is the true history. The B3 district was rezoned July 8th, 2013, and renamed the North Chestnut Gateway District. The design guidelines that were referenced in the North Chestnut Gateway District were removed in the NBR on the 28th of October 2015 rezoning of that district. I've extracted the relevant information from that local law, 7-2013, and the adopted village comprehensive plan. Although perhaps one might argue these are not zoning code, they are guidelines that are part of the comprehensive plan and provide meaningful design elements that must be addressed in proposed developments. Paragraph 2 of the 2013 North Chestnut Gateway District Local Law Number 7 states the sustainability of site design is also incorporated into the district regulatory scheme. The overlay of a village-wide set of standards during review of new development is a vital feature of this district. The following text refers to pages 30 and 31 in the adopted 1994 Village Comprehensive Plan. So, the design guidelines for the proposed overlay district, those are taken right from the comprehensive plan, and it deals with the kinds of things that buildings need to be evaluated for. In determining the appropriateness of buildings, design elements of proposed buildings should be evaluated in relation to existing adjacent or surrounding buildings. Illustrations showing the elements should be examined that can be found at the end of the design guidelines. In most cases, to be considered appropriate, new buildings should be rural in character and similar to existing buildings in the following respects: height, bulk and general massing, major divisions or rhythms of the facade, proportion of openings, e.g. window-to-wall relationships, roof treatment, materials, colors and textures of buildings and signage. In general, natural materials such as stone, brick, wood siding, shingles, slate, etc. are preferred to industrial or artificial materials such as raw or exposed concrete, etc. General architectural character, horizontal or vertical emphasis, scale, stylistic features and themes, e.g. porches, cornices, detail and ornament, relation to street. And finally, except where physical constraints, site configuration, or safety considerations preclude strict compliance, all parking must be accessible by driveway to the parking lots of adjacent non-residential uses and land zoned for non-residential uses. So the diagrams are affixed on the properly stapled copies. It's because I've stapled the history of zoning amendments in this area so closely, I found the changes. It's not easy to find zoning amendments that have been superseded. Local law 2013 is particularly hard to find, and I've noted the URL here. You can find it in the Town of New Paltz website archives or by Googling North Chestnut Gateway District. As I've noted, these are design guidelines. That's why it's so important the NBR Committee recommend changes that codify what such design standards must be for the district. Also note that the 2013 moratorium, which was a local law passed in February 2013 that preceded the adoption of the North Chestnut Gateway District, included an important reiteration of the Village Comprehensive Plan. And basically it said, whereas an updated set of terms is currently under consideration by the Village Board, and whereas each of the 9 specific goals established by the Village Comprehensive Plan remain as apt and critical as at the time of adoption, and the text goes on giving reasons for the moratorium. So those 2013 Gateway District regulations were superseded by the NBR zone. And if you go to the minutes, again, the URL, it's at the bottom there, you can see the adoption documents that went with it. That was another moratorium that lasted from the 8th of July until the NBR's passage in October 28th, 2015. In the required Ulster County Planning Board review of the zoning change, the Ulster County Planning Board recommended that the New Paltz Village Board should consider developing a form-based code and required the board to ease the overall review process by making apartments above the first floor a permitted use by right. The Village Board did not follow these recommendations. So if you want to look at those references, you can find them in the Village website where they've got the minutes, and that's the folder for 10/28/15, and there's a big section in there, pages 10.1 to 10.58. They include the Ulster County Planning Board's recommendation that the Village of New Paltz adopt a form-based zoning code. They attached a local law example from the Town of Lloyd Gateway District. So again, you've got the link there, and that's the architectural diagrams. So I also, this is your third document, I believe everything should be done in threes. So, the third document is just the pictures, so I can't really read them into the record, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. So, you've got several of those here. This is a picture of the proposed gateway, an adopted gateway area for the town of Lloyd in the Highland Hamlet area. So this is like a mock-up of what they want it to look like. These are more detailed recommendations that have to do with the placement of the buildings on the lots, and also lot coverage, building coverage, landscaped area, etc. So I'm going to send you a link to that too, but I thought you might like to have, just a flavor of what the Ulster County Planning Board is recommending, and the town of Lloyd has adopted this for the district that's right next to where the walkway over the Hudson comes into the community, so that the village can continue to sort of grow in an appropriate way that helps tourism and other aspects of selling your village to the community work even better if you've got really firm guidelines that allow everyone to know what you want to end up looking like. So those three documents I think will be helpful, and they're sort of the teaser for where we're going to go. I intend to send you some more stuff in round number 2. So, are there any questions about any of those?
We should just say that, we've mentioned form-based zoning a few times. And all it is it's really design guidelines with diagrams and pictures. It's more of an illustrated design guidelines is what form-based zoning is, so that you really know the end product and you can see, what the zoning is asking.
And it also really considers the whole holistic view of how a building relates to the street, to the sidewalk, to things like bike paths and pedestrian crossings, so that you're looking at the planning of the future of a community by looking at it as if it were an outdoor room. Zoning is a very blunt instrument for planning because it deals with use, like residential, commercial, or industrial. It deals with bulk and height and lot dimensions and density, but it's not something that really is a very good planning tool. The only tool that we have in this country to get to what your plan needs to be is zoning, but it's an incredibly blunt instrument. In fact, it's been called a straitjacket.
Go ahead.
I was sitting in a room with many planning experts, of which I am not. And I wonder what these sorts of standards do to frustrate eclectic, creative, new quality design. Maybe
A lot. So over the years, a lot of innovative zoning techniques attempt to sort of get around the straitjacket of zoning. So there is a whole mass of innovative zoning techniques, and most of them are just trying to get around the fact that zoning is not a very good planning tool. So there's
The mixed use.
Yeah.
The whole idea of mixed use is anti-zoning. I mean, zoning was created because you had corporations that were putting huge amounts of money in manufacturing, textile manufacturing actually in New York City, and didn't want those residences next to it because the residences had fires all the time, and they would burn down their investment in the factory. So zoning was actually created to prevent the factory from the residents.
And it was the Fifth Avenue merchants, Tiffany and Company, that in 1916 did not want those garment workers who were gradually moving up from the tip of Manhattan. The industry was kind of moving into the retail area, so the retail merchants didn't want those, smelly immigrants mixing with their well-heeled shoppers. So they devised zoning in order to separate uses for a very selfish kind of, they wanted to separate the uses. And then they, through a very slick campaign, sold the idea to the rest of the country. It was a brilliant scheme. Yeah.
In response to Don's question, I think an important factor of form-based zoning is that it's also in relationship to the surrounding existing community.
Start again, please.
Well, in response to Don's comment, form-based zoning, another important aspect of it is that it zones to be sensitive to the environment, the carrying capacity of the land, and the existing community. I think that's a key part of what form-based zoning does. And I have heard for many years that people in New Paltz don't want to squelch the creativity. I think this leaves a lot of room for that while providing sort of the bones of what shape and size the community's going to be.
But you can still paint it purple.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And the thing about mixed-use zoning is truly, we've got mixed-use zoning in downtown New Paltz. Mixed-use zoning is just going back to 19th century patterns where you have retail on the bottom, offices or residential above. So we're just saying, gee, we need to get back to that mixed-use situation that we, messed up by creating suburbia and separating uses. So, yeah, form-based zoning is kind of helping us to wiggle around what zoning has forced us into.
It's a better question for a classroom with the committee. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Don, our current zoning, like the B2 and the B1, I think is very effective, and it allows, basically it was created to match what was already there.
Yeah.
And especially like the R2s, and it keeps similar uses in similar areas, and it keeps non-compatible uses away from each other, and that's
Okay.
really the sense of it. There's really no design standards other than the gateway, and maybe the B1 has design standards, so it allows you whatever creativity you want, but regulates you to stick to certain density, certain uses, that makes it compatible with what's already there in that district. So,
Gotcha.
I think the current zoning in the village has always worked well. B3 aside from that, B3 was always the highway district that was set up more for car dealerships and farm dealership, that used to be out there too, so.
And I think what we're trying to do is create or really redevelop that district or recreate that district as a mixed use, but we've got some sensitive things. We've got 32 coming in, and you want more bicycle pedestrian friendly, but it's still got to function as 32. You've got the rail trail. Well, the rail trail is not like Dutchess County Rail Trail or Lloyd's Rail Trail because it's not a paved alternate transportation facility like those are. I mean, I helped build Dutchess Rail Trail and Harlem Valley Rail Trail. I can tell you this, Dutchess Rail Trail is $27 million. So, the type of facility that you're talking about that can handle the traffic and be the basis for a community pedestrian is a real investment, and we have to try and work that out in this district. How do we grow? How do we expand? But how do we work within the resources that we have?
Thank you. Okay, so our schedule then, we're trying to do this in a 3-month time frame. We have to clarify exactly how that's going to be laid out, but I will do that with the consultant and then get back to you. Once we get going, we will probably be meeting more than every other week, but that again is in the future. I'd like to have some very brief ground rules, but I think this introductory meeting has gone on very well.
Before we,
Yeah.
while we're on the topic of schedule, what's your departure, what's your schedule in terms of?
I have to leave to deal with selling the house in England, and I'll be back in just over 2.5 weeks. So I'll be back by the 21st.
21st of March.
And I will be in contact with everybody by email, because there's email.
Yeah.
Even in England?
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So, yeah, just because I'm in another
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a family thing. We have to sell the house so that my brother's house that he lives in isn't foreclosed on. So, and I planned this in October. So, I apologize, but we'll manage.
It's what it is.
Yes. So the next steps will be to get up to speed. The ground rules I'd like to establish are very brief. Listen to learn and understand, not to rebut. Understand more and fear less. Step up and step back when we're talking. And finally, respect history, learn from the present, and vision the future. The other thing I'd like to ask the committee about is something that I guess I've moved around in the schedule now. Is perhaps suggesting that we need to ask the village board to adopt a moratorium. And both the village planning board and the Historic Preservation Committee have, I think, supported that. It would mean that there's a little less pressure on getting things done. We are exempting Zero Place anyway from any moratorium that might be enacted.
Did we get notes from county yet?
No. I spoke to Tim about this afternoon. The notes have not come back from the county yet. The individual responsible for drafting those notes has been out sick. It's now the second full week. So he was going to follow back up with them to see if there was anything else to report. But from what the mayor is saying, we are unable to vote on a moratorium until we get those notes back.
Would it be possible for this committee to suggest or to vote to ask for a moratorium or to support one?
Well, what the HPC did was we voted to authorize the chair to write a letter of supporting a moratorium because that was what the group felt they wanted to do. So should this group feel likewise, I'll put out a motion. I motion that we authorize Joe Mana to draft a letter in support of the moratorium. I personally feel that we should.
I'll say.
All in favor?
Well, I think we'll just discuss.
Oh, discuss.
I'm not sure how everybody feels a moratorium is, but personally I'm in favor of it. I don't see any downside to having a moratorium. I like the idea of setting a deadline as we are working and we have this 3-month process and we're trying to come back in 6. If we have a 6-month moratorium, it should all work in concert and that would be very nice. I know Michael Ziller had come to the village board and stated that there was a process that we could use to get around having a moratorium that involved alerting anybody that came in to the building department that there may be a change in code, but I'm not comfortable with the amount of liability that's there. If there's no downside to having a moratorium, I don't understand why we wouldn't. So that's me, a soapbox.
Any other thoughts on the issue?
I rent office space in the district, and I happen to see someone looking at property they own in the district with a planned development. So there are some other things in the works, but I just think it would be cruel to accept that application and have it go on for 90 days or 6 months and then change the rules. I think also leaves open to lawsuits. It's, you said,
Yeah, if you're just asking the building inspector to say, oh, by the way, there might be like a change in this district, and it does leave the community open to lawsuits if you're doing that instead of having a moratorium. And
it's interesting to me that, I mean, would we suspend fees? Or
I
are
don't
you
know.
taking people's money for their application but not processing the application?
I thought the village
That
planning
seems
board
strange to me.
came to the idea that maybe they wanted a moratorium.
They were, yes, at the end of the conversation.
At the end of the conversation.
At the end of the conversation, it was pointed towards, yes, we're more in support of it with certain caveats like
Yeah.
time, money,
Yeah,
everything we've discussed so far.
but they weren't against it. I think that
No, no,
I think the
no,
idea of just
right.
telling people, oh, watch out.
Well, no, originally there was, Michael came to one of the
Right.
village board meetings, but they had their own meeting on this.
Yes, I know, I was
You
there.
were there. So, and then one board member was very clear that he wanted some discussion of what's transpired over the last year in respect to net zero projects.
Right. Okay, so what does this committee feel?
Call the question, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
Okay, I will write a letter. So our next steps will be to meet with Michael Allen on March 21st. And I will let you know when the contract with him is signed. I'll be sending you little bits of homework. I promised, I've been cutting it down. So,
What I would recommend though is
but
that.
I'd also like to know if you could get back to me with questions, like, could you tell me about this? Or how do I find out about this stuff? Or, you know, that would be really helpful. A couple of the members of the committee asked me for specific, you know, could you tell me where to find this? And that was very helpful in formulating the stuff that I gave you today.
I would just think that also if people have run into other ordinances
Yep.
or good examples that they think would be applicable here, pass those on as well.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing a similar situation in a town of Birch and state of New York, how they've handled the same sort of thing we're going through. You know, something was pushed through, was adopted, you know, oh, we don't like this, and then let's go through the moratorium phase, and then if specifically too, how form-based code was utilized or interacted with that process. Because that's, I think that's kind of where we're moving in that direction, and so how that would better inform this committee, inform the public, what direction we're going in based upon
I think
other types of action.
That's one of the great things about working with Ian, when we did the town open space plan.
He was able to provide us with examples from all over New York State in terms of how open space plans were configured and how the recommendations were configured, and I think
This example I gave you, along with the text I'm going to send you, is right in our own backyard. They already just adopted it in 2013, but it is, you know, a fairly innovative thing that various communities are adopting it. And there's also some really good websites that I can send to you about form-based zoning codes and design-based approaches. And some of them are very dense and some of them are really quick, you know, so that'll give you a better idea. A lot of it's illustrative, so there are pictures and stories about places rather than just being a zoning ordinance, which is harder to comprehend in many cases.
Well, I'm not necessarily just concerned about our own understanding as a committee, but I'm also very concerned about what the public is, what they're exposed to, what they can learn from this process as well. So,
I would tell you that, you know, Lloyd did theirs.
Yeah.
Poughkeepsie, they did a similar ordinance on the Poughkeepsie side. And in both ordinance, Sinnakatsu was involved with both of them and helping push them, get them together, as well as state parks. And it really was to take advantage of the economic opportunity that the walkway brought, but having a known, kind of in a known way, in a known fashion. And, you know, the Poughkeepsie area is right near where my office is, and it's a very different part of town. It's a very different part of town after dark. And it's how do you transform kind of that area of the city into something that's more, I'll say, worthwhile, my judgment. Whereas Lloyd was more of kind of how do we take economic advantage of the walkway in a way that we know what we're going to get.
So that'd be part of our conversation too, is what context are we looking at for this particular area? Right now, the objections have been to date on the zoning were traffic, scale, height, character, that sort of thing. But what is our objective for that zone? And I think maybe that's part of what we can better clarify.
Clear.
Again,
Clearly.
In this process.
I agree.
Yes, so those are some of the things that we need to write down and bring to the conversation with Michael Allen. So, you know, it may seem like we've got this empty period of time, but actually it's that time when we can get our thoughts together, get our questions together, because really the questions that you ask are the most important thing. That's how you find out, you know, what people are not understanding or what the real, you know, where are we going with this? What are the key ingredients? How is this going to help us get to where we want to go? So those kind of questions are things that, you know, occur to you. Write them down. And also let me know of things you might be interested in and comment on the things I sent to you. Okay? Are there any other thoughts?
Well, being consistent, one thing I would like to do is sit down with a calendar and suggest some dates for the public meetings and the meetings, after being together with on the March 21st. I was thinking a month later and a month after that might be good for this committee to meet. But I'll put something in an email and get that around.
And I think that's great because I think you guys have a better idea of what else is going on, maybe in terms of timeframes, than we would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
If you could let me know what those are. Yeah, I totally agree. I need to have, you know, I need to see the whole picture in order to work backwards from that, and so we can reach the goal we want to by the time
And
we
we'll
need to
clear our
get there.
calendars and make sure we can make the meetings and stuff. It's just easier for
Great.
Right.
logistically.
As soon as I can find out from the consultant what his timeline is, that'll be something to do.
Well, hopefully he can make it by March 21st. Right?
Oh, I'm sure he will. That's why we've got this time between now and then to get organized and get up to speed. So please be in touch with me by email. You know where that is. And I'm just at the other end of an email stream. And I'll be back.
As your co-chair, I'd like to make a message that, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Before you do, let me just confirm, the March 21st meeting is at the same time?
At this time, at 5 to 6:30.
Okay.
Okay, so you make a motion to adjourn?
I do.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No meetings for 45 minutes now.
Yeah.
Go crazy.
Well, you're going to eat, right?
So we'll just turn these off and begin.
Yeah, planning board's going to use
That's
another
the
hour
way
right
I
right
like
there.
to roll.
You guys know who we're missing? Who
I like
are we
Fox.
missing?
Is the NPC?
John,
The other planning board member.
I did rearrange
Yeah.
the
John Ledger.
order.
If you ever have something really long that you want to read through, I don't mind taking turns to spare you from having to read
Now,
I don't mind claiming things.
So where's your house in England?
It's in a place called Stevenage, which is a new town. I grew up in a planned community. It was one of the new towns that were built after World War II to accommodate all the people whose houses were knocked down by bombs.
So
So
that would be in the London area then?
yeah, it's 30 miles north of London. There's a ring, thank you, Jacob. There's a ring of new towns.
Okay.
And over there, the planning is a lot more kind of top-down. They designated an area. There was an original old village there, and then they built the thing from scratch.
Sure.
It has cycleways parallel to all the major roads. It has neighborhoods where there's neighborhood shopping, and it's kind of centered around schools. And then there's a common town